Apostle Paul says, and if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, this is now speaking about the Gentiles, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches, he says to the Gentiles. Don't think that you're so great because you were grafted in. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. Of course, the root represents whom? Jesus. You will say then, branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. Well said, says the Apostle Paul. Because of unbelief, they were broken off. Unbelief in whom? The natural branches were broken off because of unbelief in Jesus. And you stand by how? He says the reason you're grafted in is because you have what? Faith. Faith in whom? In Jesus. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, He may not spare you either. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of God. On those who fell, severity, but toward you, goodness, if you continue in His goodness. Otherwise, you also will be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, see, will be grafted in. See, they'll be grafted into their own tree. For God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, who are natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel. He's speaking about literal Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles have come in. And so all Israel will be what? Will be saved. And so some say, see, it says there that all Israel someday is going to be saved, but they don't take into account what comes immediately before. You see, what is all Israel according to the preceding context? According to the preceding context, all Israel will be saved means all faithful Israel that has been grafted into the tree. Natural branches that have remained, natural branches that were cut off and grafted in again, and wild olive branches that were taken off of a wild olive tree and grafted into the natural olive tree. In other words, the context indicates that when the Apostle Paul says all Israel will be saved, he means all faithful Israel who have been grafted into the tree, into the root, Jesus Christ. And so it says, and so all Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. So how many trees illustrate the people of God? Does God have two separable trees? Does He have two separable wives? Does He have two separable bodies? Does He have two separable folds? Does He have two separable Israels? Not according to Scripture. He has one people, one faithful people who are determined by their relationship to Jesus Christ. Now, our next point is that there is only going to be one banquet table in the kingdom for Jews and Gentiles. You know, Jesus had just healed the servant of a centurion. You know what a centurion was, right? He was the head of 11 soldiers in the Roman army, in the Roman legions, is the way that they were called. And Jesus had just healed his servant. And I want you to notice what Jesus said to those who were watching there and listening to what He had done for this centurion. Notice Matthew 8, verses 11 and 12. Jesus says, and I say to you that many will come from east and west. Do you know who those are? The Gentiles. Many will come from east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob faithful?